you've got a complete shift. So you can either say the game's evolving, which it has, but is the job of a football coach or a football team not to get the best players on the ball as much as possible in a game with the best quality?
But is that more teams are sitting in? Is that another argument to it?
But whichever way we're looking at it, we're watching constantly and we're being served up this crap where we're watching centre-backs, full-backs and goalkeepers touch the ball hundreds of times more than the most talented players on the pitch. That isn't right, that. We've got to call it for what it is, because the reality is you can say the game's evolving, you can sound cynical as an ex-player, but it can't be evolving in the right way. If the least talented players on the pitch are defenders, which we are...
but you mentioned Brighton there, but Brighton have been successful the last few years, so maybe that suits their way of playing.
I've no doubt it suits all teams.
No, I don't think it does. I don't think it... Southampton have been relegated. They try to play off from the back, so it doesn't necessarily suit certain teams.
We'll get back to Gary and Roy in just a quick second, but remember, if you like this video, please like, share and subscribe, and don't forget to click the notification button so that you know when the next Big D video hits. And as ever, if something is on your mind, if something is bubbling up inside of you that you need to express, please express it in the comments. The Big D reads all of the comments, and he's always interested in what is on your mind. Anyway, in this little clip, it's a little clip from the Overlap, as always, and it's Gary Neville having a bit of a moan about crap modern football. And Roy Keane's having a little bit of a moan about it as well, and to be honest, the Big D kind of agrees. But we'll save the Big D's opinion about that for the time being. Here's the clip. Stick around for after the clip, because Big D is going to be giving his thoughts on today's football. Here they are.
Right, me and Roy spoke about the game on Sunday at Manchester City. Are we grumpy old men, or were we right?
Stop saying we.
You know something? It's not a case of... Gal, you're
are we grumpy old men, or were we right to highlight basically not for any individual team, but that the game itself wasn't an acceptable game?
But Gal, where you are with
it, things are a little bit robotic.
Yeah, but I've been hearing this for a while with people. Just speak to fans, speak to people in the pub. They're saying, I don't hardly watch it now. You know what's going to happen. You know, if City are playing against a certain team, it's like, you know that City are going to have a lot of ball. They're going to stay in, and there's not a lot to see in respects of a spectacle.
Like entertainment, you
mean,
yes, more entertainment.
Exactly. You know, like for instance, now we know, like Pep, obviously, 4 on the spin, we know it's Pep football, everybody's like, oh, let's all play like that. But then you look at someone like Forest. I think if Forest weren't getting the results, then people would say, they're just a team that sit. But Forest are exciting to watch. You like watching Forest.
I agree.
But that's the way it's gone, the way Pep's done it.
But should we sit here and accept it?
I don't think, you know what, but I haven't even finished, Gal. We haven't even added into the fact that not only do you watch games that you watch, you think, Jesus, crying out loud, but then you've got the refereeing decisions that take the heart out of the game. The goal, you can't celebrate a goal. You don't know if it's going to be a goal. If they do score, you think, is it going to be knocked off with VAR? The fans in the stadium ain't got a clue what's going on. The most important people. It all feels a little bit like...
But is the league entitled to have a little dip every now and again? I'm sure back when we played, there was years where it was like, actually, just surely... We don't see German. We don't watch German football or Spanish football or Italian. But do they have years where you go just little dips maybe?
I think that's a good point. It's suppose in some ways it's this style of play that we're watching. You mentioned it earlier on in the season when we were in Barcelona about you'd watched the League Two game, where I think it was MK Dons and Salford, and you said there were players playing it out from the back on the 6-yard box, and they obviously couldn't do that. That's why obviously they're playing at League Two level. But they're being asked to do things that they can't do. It's painful watching it.
Yeah.
It's painful watching it. It's actually happening through the whole game. It wasn't just about the Manchester derby, I don't think, the comments that we were making on Sunday. It's about generally in the game.
Can I tell you, a game I saw, Roy, was the Old Firm derby a couple of weeks ago when Rangers beat 3-2. And you know what, I'm not talking about, it was like, they were defending and like they had all the possession, Rangers or so. You know, it was a game that was end-to-end, players trying, you know what I mean, tackles flying. No one got booked for 35 minutes. You know, the VAR didn't get involved in it. And it wasn't like, oh my God, it's Real Madrid and Barcelona. It was Celtic and Rangers, and they were going for it. And it was one of the most entertaining games I've seen.
Yeah, but the situation was that Celtic already have won the league, so Rangers are going to come and have a go.
I'm saying about the entertainment.
Yeah, of course, but that's what you want. But when we're watching games, our teams, like just a United at the moment, or even City, more reluctant even for these clubs to go. Their focus is more about not losing than going to win. That was definitely the case on Sunday. I know it's not the case every time they play.
Do you think that's the mentality why it's so boring?
For certain teams, I think there's so much at stake. I think if you play a game in the Premier League, for some, even the less teams, a point is huge for them. So if you go, listen, take a point today. So their mindset would be, for some of them, is let's not be beaten.
Yeah.
But strange enough, that was a bit like United and City, which surprised me. I thought United...
Yeah. That was
but are we perceiving like City United to be this massive game because we're kind of like stuck in how they used to play, whereas now, as you say,
it was a big game.
I
thought it was a big game because City are still trying to get in the Champions League.
Yeah.
United are trying to get their fans back on side.
Get some pride.
Yeah, pride. Well, pride has to come. But when we played football and you were playing younger age and there was nobody at the game, you're at some stage it's your pride what kind of drives you on to put on a good performance. If there's one man and his dog watching, doesn't matter if there's 80,000. But I didn't see that on Sunday. Now, whether that's some of our fault, something we're sitting in the studio all day going, listen, we want goal action, of course. But when the two teams afterwards, it's like, we don't take a draw and go home. You're like,
it felt very friendly afterwards, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Whatever. When we played, people say, but we can only talk about our experience. But I think our mindset, and I'm going to say 99 times out of 100 was to try and win a game. There'd be certain games where you go, listen, a draw's not too bad, of course, or you've a man sent off or whatever. But your mindset had to be, Man United are home, surely they have to try and win a game of football.
Yeah.
They have to. That should be in the DNA of the football club. Not to say, hold on, we're looking at next season, we got a new system, we got new... Yeah, I get all that, but you know where the goal is down there, you got to try and put the ball in there. You know, as if people forget about it. You got to score goals.
Obviously, I had my comments on Sunday. I went strong on it because I just feel like the last few weeks I've watched games that have been a struggle. Yeah. They're a struggle to watch. And you're right, Righty, by the way. The fans are saying it. Yeah. Commentators are saying it. People who are ex-coaches, players, I think probably even current players are looking at it thinking sometimes. I mean, some of the players are having the energy drained out of them. And I thought, we're seeing so much of defenders being on the ball. And I thought, you know something? I'm watching constantly goalkeepers and defenders on the ball constantly. So I went back to the last 5 years of my career. I've not been on Monday Night Football for a few years, but I actually wanted to go on Monday Night Football on Monday night. My last 5 years at United, the 5 players who had the most passes in the league in 2006-07 were Fabregas, Scholes, Alonso, Gilberto Silva and Lampard. Yeah. Next year it's Fabregas, Gail Clichy, defender, was in there, Flamini, Gerrard, Butt. The year after, Denilson, Alonso, Mikel, Lampard, Murphy. The year after, Barry Ferguson, Mascherano, Lampard, Terry, Lucas Leiva. The year after, Modric comes into a group with Ferguson, Essien, Murphy. Mainly midfield players, holding midfield players that you're dictating the game. They're the players who had the most possession in the ball in my last 5 years in my career. They're players I want to see on the ball, just most generally. Some of them maybe not, but most of them. In the last 5 years in the Premier League, well, last year, Virgil van Dijk, Joseph Guardiola, Levi Colwill, William Saliba, and then Bruno Fernandes. So 4 defenders in the top 5 have got the ball. The year before was Rodri, Lewis Dunk, Virgil van Dijk, William Saliba. The year before that, Lewis Dunk had the most passes in the Premier League. We don't come to football to watch Brighton centre-back play, do we? We just don't. No. Rodri again, Alexander-Arnold, Trippier, Van Dijk, 4 defenders in it again. 2021-22, Cancelo, Rodri, always in it, Rodri. Laporte, Trent Alexander-Arnold, or Højbjerg. So two midfield players in that group, but 3 defenders. The year before that, Robertson, Alexander-Arnold, Ayling, Højbjerg, Rodri. Now, obviously, there's 4 defenders in that, but Robertson and Trent were flying forward. But you've got a complete shift. So you can either say the game's evolving, which it has, but is the job of a football coach or a football team not to get the best players on the ball as much as possible in a game with the best quality?
But is that more teams are sitting in? Is that another argument to it?
But whichever way we're looking at it, we're watching constantly and we're being served up this crap where we're watching centre-backs, full-backs and goalkeepers touch the ball hundreds of times more than the most talented players on the pitch. That isn't right, that. We've got to call it for what it is, because the reality is you can say the game's evolving, you can sound cynical as an ex-player, but it can't be evolving in the right way. If the least talented players on the pitch are defenders, which we are...
but you mentioned Brighton there, but Brighton have been successful the last few years, so maybe that suits their way of playing.
I've no doubt it suits all the teams.
No, I don't think it does. I don't think it... Southampton have been relegated, they try to play off from the back, so it doesn't necessarily suit certain teams. The bit that annoys me, if you're like City a few years ago, when they're playing off from the back, you're going, but you know what, they're biding their time, and then it's the bad teams who are doing it and getting caught. Yeah. You're going, what's the point? And that would be my argument, because as a manager and staff, you must sit there and go, what's the best way for us to get results? Yeah. Brighton have found a way. To be fair to Brighton have made good progress over the last few years. So if they're playing off from the back, you go, I can see why you're doing it.
But Roy,
I don't see why the other teams are doing it who can't.
But Roy, in my last 5 years at United, that was a team that got to 3 Champions League finals and won 4 Premier Leagues. Successful team. Vidic and Rio were the centre-backs. They played out from the back every game, but they got the ball straight away. So the mentality of a United centre-half in that era, and probably every centre-half in that era, even the other clubs, was to get the ball into Roy Keane, Paul Scholes, Xavi Alonso, Cesc Fabregas, Steven Gerrard straight away. That's our job. My job is to get the ball into those players as quickly as possible with quality. They get on it, we've got more chance of winning a football match. That's not what's happening here.
No, we're
do you
getting
not think we used to
The goalkeeper's getting... Is the goalkeeper
when they used to play
now?
out from the back, though, even the beginning with City, it would be ball speed across the back, then into the midfield.
Yeah.
But now, when the weight on the ball, I hate it, and it just slows it down. Somebody comes, it's like a game of chess, and I think that's why it's just staying around the back too long. It used to be quick into your midfield.
Is it because obviously Pep and the way he's come with the way he wants to play?
It's weird when we mention Pep because it's hard to criticise Pep.
Yeah.
But it's the other coaches, the foreign coaches who've come in, are they not as good? Do you reckon the quality has dropped in terms of the coaching?
Well,
because everyone looks at Pep, we all look at Pep, we all look at Barcelona, but not every team can play like Barcelona.
But Roy, I said, to be fair, what we're seeing now is poor imitations of Pep's style.
Of course.
Yeah. So Pep's not the problem here. Pep's, to be fair, a genius who's built unbelievable teams and won Premier League titles and trebles and all the rest of it. But I think that the other coaches are now getting caught up in to see a team that's 18th in the league have their goalkeeper on the 6-yard box roll it 4 yards to the centre-back. Yeah. I'm sorry.
It's crazy.
That is just
crazy.
We can say, we can sound cynical here and say that we're not evolving with the modern game, or we can just call it for what it is, which is that the best players on the pitch are not spending time on the ball. But even worse than that, wingers, what's the winger's job in football? I know it's a change slightly. Get the ball, either cross it or deliver it into the box, or play a 1-2 in, or to go past the fullback. That's their job of a winger. We've now got wingers who are frightened to death to take on fullbacks, and they're recycling it constantly back to fullbacks and centre midfield players.
You can actually watch players, they run towards the defender, they stop, and then they come back that way.
Yeah.
And it goes like that.
All the time.
It's very
but what
tough.
is that?
Tough
Do you think that's a fear? A fear of... Because Saka was amazing last night, just going forward, trying to
he's different. He's
take the
exception.
fullback on. But why are players doing that? Is it
I don't know.
fear?
You look at,
maybe they're on about... Yeah, maybe...
Giving the ball away.
Possessions, retaining the possession.
Roy, what they're frightened to death of? They're frightened to death of giving it away. So the final third used to be the risk area of a football pitch where you could give it away.
Yeah.
Actually now, if you give it away in the final third, you're deemed as giving it away. Yeah. So let's say a winger gives it away by coming inside and trying to beat someone. They give it away. They're frightened about counter-attack. They're constantly in fear of the counter-attack against them and the goal being scored in their net when they're on the ball.
I totally agree with Gary and Roy and Ian and Jill. Today's football, it is crap. It is. It's boring to watch, to be fair. Unless you are an absolutely awesome side, it's just boring to watch. And maybe that's just showing that I'm a Man United fan and we're just crap at the moment. So maybe that's got something to do with it. But, I mean, just generally speaking, and I've talked about this a lot, really, that, everything's just all about the system and possession and tippy-tappy and all of this. It's very rare you see the tackles flying in and the characters on the pitch and, the individualists and all that good stuff. It is very much moneyball football these days. And I suppose we do have Pep Guardiola to thank for that. But do you know what? Like Gary said, I'm not going to criticise Pep, he's a genius, blah, 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 blah. It does my head in, this notion that Pep Guardiola's a genius. How is he a genius? I don't understand that concept. He's not a genius. He's a very exceptional coach, fair enough, and he's made the most of his situation. But he hasn't reinvented anything. Not really, because he got that tippy-tapper, ticky-tacker, tippy-tappy, whatever you call it, style from Guardiola, from Johan Cruyff. And Johan Cruyff got it from Rinus Michels. And Rinus Michels got it from the Hungarian team of the 1950s. So it's nothing new. It's nothing new. It's just what's old is new again. And what's new is old again. It's just football comes in cycles and cycles and cycles. And, this instance that Pep Guardiola, his teams were actually quite easy to beat when you set your own team up right. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer used to batter Man City on a regular basis because he always played on the counter-attack. If you've got a blistering wingers and a blistering striker up front, all you need to do is play on the low block and then just batter them, And plus also, the thing is with Pep Guardiola, Like, he's always walked into a team that's, like, just dripping with world-class talent. Like, you know, at Barcelona, he inherited a team with Dani Alves, Xavi, Iniesta, Sergio Busquets, and Lionel Messi, and Samuel Eto'o. So, like, if he doesn't win the Champions League, he should be considered a failure with that team. And then he walks into the treble winners of Bayern Munich with prime Thomas Muller, prime Bastian Schweinsteiger, prime Philipp Lahm, prime Manuel Neuer. So this notion, it just... See, I don't mind that Man United are crap at the moment. I do and I don't. I mean, you know, I don't lose any sleep over it, put it that way. But the point I'm trying to make is, I want to be entertained. And one of the reasons why I loved Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is he played entertaining football. You know, so I totally sympathise with these players. And to be fair, the Pep Guardiola system, it only works when you've got world-class players, to be fair. So I agree with their point. Why are League One, League Two, League Three teams trying to do it? Why are rubbish Premier League teams trying to do this tippy-tappy stuff? Because you're never going to beat Man City at the tippy-tappy because they're just too well drilled at it. And as I say, the best way to beat them is just to beat them on the counter. That's one of the reasons why Nottingham Forest have done so well this season, because they're just big teams on the counter-attack, you know? So, hey, but yeah, football, it is boring at the moment. And he does make a good point. I didn't realise those stats were what they were in the, you know, the players that have got, who are on the ball the most are defenders, and that's not what you want. Not at all. I remember back in the day, I mean, the big D's showing his age here, but back in the day, you know, the best players were on the ball, as he says here. But like really back in the day, you had Francesco Totti was always on the ball. Roberto Baggio was always on the ball. You know, even before him, you had Gaza and you had Diego Maradona. They were always on the ball. And then obviously you had Scholesy and Beckham were always on the ball. I remember going to see a United game, and they were playing Southampton at Old Trafford. And this game is famous for Massimo Taibi letting the ball go through his legs from a tame Matt Letizia shot, right? That's what it's famous for. Now, I was at that game and I was right behind the goal, and when the ball went through Taibi's legs, it was really strange to watch. It happened in slow motion. But that's not the thing that I remember the most from that game. Man United dominated that game, to be fair. And if anyone else had been in the nets, that would have been 3-0. It was 3-3, but it would have been 3-0, right? And what I remember the most from that game was Scholes and Beckham just running the game. You know, people talk about Xavi and Iniesta just like dominating games with possession. Scholes and Beckham were doing it long before they were doing it. It was impressive to watch. Pinging balls around to each other. It was like they're having their own personal game of passy between each other, and everyone else on the pitch was just watching. It was absolutely a joy to behold. But they were the best players, or some of the best players, and you know they were always on the ball. And there's another one that I forgot to mention there, Matt Letizia. He was an exceptional number 10. You know, and so you know these are the players that you want on the ball. You want some excitement. Ronaldinho, Zidane. You want some excitement, and you need to have best players on the ball to do something magic, because it is entertainment. Football is entertainment. You know, when you go to the cinema, you know, you want to go and see Daniel Day-Lewis like perform. You know, you want to see Al Pacino back in the day when you watch like Taxi Driver. Well, no, that's De Niro, sorry. And when you watch The Godfather, but when you're watching De Niro, you're watching Taxi Driver. You want to see these great performances from these expert artists, so to speak. But there's no artists in the game anymore. It's just everything's just so robotic. That's one of the reasons I really like Bruno Fernandes, because he's an individualist. He's class. At the very least, he tries something. He's constantly trying and trying. And all these people are saying, oh, he gives the ball away all the time. Yeah, but he scores a lot of goals and he gets a lot of assists as well. So, yeah, football's a bit weird. I cannot wait for the day that it turns back around and someone comes along, and he'll be Brazilian, guaranteed. It'll be a Brazilian. He'll come along and he'll just be a diamond in the rough. He'll we'll put him in a team, and it'll all revolve around him, and he'll be playing against a Pep Guardiola side, or that generation's Pep Guardiola side, and they'll be all doing all the fancy tippy-tappy stuff and all of that, and then all of a sudden he'll get the ball, and they won't be able to get the ball off him, let alone the team, off him, and they'll just ping it in the top corner or something like that. That's what you need. A little bit of entertainment, a little bit of magic, a little bit of romance. Hey. And that thing about the goalkeepers just holding onto the ball and just slowly rolling it to the defenders and all of that. I was watching it the other night, and it's like, oh, good grief. When United were playing Lyon, Onana, and don't get me started on Onana, but Onana was just rolling it to Euro or Maguire, and it was just sideways passing through. Oh, it was just... It just annoys me sometimes. Well, no, annoyance... No, it doesn't annoy me. It just flabbergasts me. And whenever I go to Old Trafford, and they do it at Old Trafford all the time, right? Oh, like, this whole stadium starts booing the players when they do it. And I'm really looking forward to going to the game on Thursday, because I'm going to keep an eye out for this, and if I think on, I'll report back to you, the viewer. But I don't know. It's just weird. It's just weird. Football's just strange these days. I mean, I shouldn't really get wound up about it, really, but it is what it is. But what do you guys think? Do you like this tippy-tappy Moneyball football? I mean, it was a good Brad Pitt film, to be fair. He usually makes good films, does Brad, and that was a good film. But unfortunately, the footballers have taken on board all of this data-driven business. But hey ho, what can you do? But what do you think? Do you like it, or do you want to go back to the Individualists of Del Piero and Roberto Baggio, Francesco Totti, just to name 3 Italians? Thoughts in the comments, and the Big D will see you in the next one.